and welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Bajo.
And I'm Hex. Bajo, you know something's hoping to be awesome when it comes in a box like this.
Yes, the Oculus Rift wants to take us to a virtual reality, but do we have the stomach for it? Don't shake it. Do you feel sick in this one?
I mean, no, it's all right. It's okay for now. I mean, I couldn't do it all day, but
Perhaps when you get off.
Also this week, we take to the skies with War Thunder.
Plus, Goose celebrates the 30th birthday of a little grey box that changed the world.
But before all that, can you guess the game for this week? Okay, well, I'll go read the news while you set this up.
Right, careful with the box. Precious.
Good game.
World of Tanks creators Wargaming has purchased the rights to the Total Annihilation and Master of Orion franchises. The purchases follow on from Wargaming's recent acquisition of gas-powered games, the studio headed by Total Annihilation designer Chris Taylor. No actual sequels to the franchises have yet been announced. Longtime writer of the Ratchet & Clank games, TJ Fixman, has announced that he will be leaving Insomniac Games to work in the film and television industry. In a personal blog explaining the move, he said he will continue to work closely with Insomniac Games to help bring the franchise to the big screen for an upcoming film adaptation.
Everyone is out making the Ratchet & Clank movie.
And in more writer news, Battlestar Galactica and Monk screenwriter Michael Angeli has revealed that he's been working with God of War studio Sony Santa Monica on an unannounced game. The news came from a recent panel at the San Diego Comic-Con, where he revealed that he's been working on the game for the last 2.5 years. Job listings for the studio hint that the new project could be an open-world shooter with vehicular combat. The live-action Halo web series Forward Unto Dawn has received an Emmy nomination for Best Main Title Design. The web series was released last year in the lead-up to the launch of Halo 4 and gathered over 55 million views. Other nominees in the category include The Newsroom, Elementary, American Horror Story Asylum, and Da Vinci's Demons.
Play it again, please.
Good game.
Hi, Hex.
Hey.
I think it's safe to say that we've been excited about virtual reality for a very long time.
Yes, it feels like the next step for games, doesn't it? The final stage of total immersion.
And now, it's virtually a reality, as we've managed to get our hands on an early version of the Oculus Rift headset. Hex, let's go virtual.
I mean, there's something very 80s about it, isn't there? I know it's a functional design, but it still looks like something out of Back to the Future.
Technically strapping 2 monitors to your head.
Yeah.
It's pretty 80s. I think it looks cool.
Feels like, oh, there's a fireplace. And, oh, there's a ball. Okay, whoa, okay, I'm moving now. I mean, this is awesome, because I feel like, I don't know that I feel like I'm outside, but it really captures the space. You know, it feels like a wide open space.
You get the sense of depth.
Wow. That's the sun. That's very cool. I can still see my shoulder.
You should take a photo. Oh dear. Hang on, just back it up a second. Oh. What happens if I go down here? Oh, no. I had to shut my eyes. It was too intense.
Think about how Minecraft would be in virtual reality. That would be awesome.
Oh, Minecraft in virtual reality. Hey.
Whoa.
You want a piece of me? Do it again. Oh, no, I gotta stop.
Are you actually gonna vomit?
I think I'm okay. There wasn't vomit, but it was this close.
Virtual reality isn't a new idea by a long shot. It's been tried before and it's been rubbish. So what makes this one different? Well, the motion tracking tech here is pretty much spot on. Where you look, it looks. And the field of view is wide enough that you're almost completely absorbed in the world.
Okay, I look down there and I can see it feels like that is actually lower.
Combine these two elements together and you have a very convincing window into a pair of virtual eyes.
As you can see, it takes a game and creates a warped image for each eye. So when you put the headset on, the lens unwarps it, and each eye gets its own image, creating a natural 3D effect. Whoa!
That's good. Yeah, the 3D is so convincing that when you see something near you in Oculus, you genuinely feel like you can pinpoint the exact place in space that object should be.
Yeah, they've nailed that depth, haven't they? It all just feels right.
As our Earth. So for me, it's here. That's your face.
This is still an early developer kit, and it will be improved before launch sometime next year. And as incredible as it is, it does need some improving. The big issue for me is the screens. They're at such a low resolution, you can clearly see each pixel. And it does feel a bit like you're looking through a fly screen at times. And that's one of the biggest things they're trying to improve for Final, a better resolution screen. So hopefully that fly screen effect won't be an issue come launch.
Another problem at the moment is that you can't actually lean forward to get a closer look at something, and they're very keen to get that working.
I feel like this is one step closer to that long sought after holodeck experience. And we've seen people creating omnidirectional treadmills and using all sorts of motion devices to get closer to that goal.
Though it has to be said, as impressive as it is, this experience can be quite immersive to the point of being overwhelming. There are a few games that can make you feel quite sick pretty quickly.
All right, speedrun. Dun, 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 huh, dun, dun, oh. I do not feel well already. I think the sickness and the disorientation that you feel when you put it on and take it off, it's because what your eyes are seeing and what your brain is feeling are two different things.
Okay, I'm gonna go downstairs now. And I'm going to take a walk outside if I don't vomit first. What's that? Oh, cushion. Yeah, you definitely felt it more than I did, and it'll affect different people in different ways. And I think part of the VR experience is just finding your VR legs, so to speak. So it does get better over time, and we definitely found some experiences more tolerable than others. God, it's a great learning tool, this one would be, wouldn't it? Because you really, even when you see it in a textbook, you don't really get the sense of, you know, the planet's sizes in relation to each other. Titans of Space is basically an interactive fly-through of nearby planets and their moons. And no one had a major problem with that. What I really want is, you know, to be a Viper pilot in a Battlestar Galactica game.
Yes.
So that should be the next thing
Space games.
On the block
Yes.
for this one.
Yes.
The movements are slow and steady, and I think having an experience where your brain is expecting to be sitting still really helps a lot. And that's good news for any kind of flight game, fighter, space game, racing games even.
Yeah, and I actually found it quite cool looking down and seeing my body. That was quite a cool experience, and it grounded me a little bit as well.
Yeah.
We also tried Half-Life 2, and that shows how just a few tweaks of the controls can make a big difference. I actually don't feel so sick in this one compared to the others. Something about it feels more...
Is it because you have that reticule there with the mouse, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. The problem with the Villa demo is the view is directly tied to your mouse or controller, much like in any first-person game. But that makes it so any movement of the mouse or thumbstick feels like someone is pulling your head around, and that's not a nice sensation. So the default solution Valve has is a nice big dead zone in the middle of the screen, so you can aim without having your view pulled around. And I found that much, much better.
Yeah, it's a simple but effective solution, and we found ourselves able to stomach it much longer than Tuscan Villa. Obviously, it's very early days, and there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of figuring out which control schemes and experiences work best, but it's such an exciting direction for games to be taking, isn't it? And I think the more games that are developed with VR in mind, the better.
There is something magical about this, and every week there seems to be a new game which has support for it too, so I think by the time it launches, we will have quite a lot to choose from.
And that segues nicely into our review for War Thunder, which is our latest gratis gaming pick.
This is a World War II flight game currently in open beta on PC, and it's filled with frantic dogfights.
Oh dear! Oh dear! Hex is being off to the right, Goose. You're on your own. Whoa! Oh dear!
We'll get to the Oculus support in a moment, but for now let's talk about the game. This is considered as an MMO, but it's a lobby game. There's no open world, just lots of players and unlocked progression. It's jumping into the world of tanks kind of scene. In fact, it was even called World of Planes for a while.
There is a lot to do here. PvE co-op missions, custom scenarios, and arcade PvP, which is where we spent most of our time. As you progress, you'll unlock more planes for each country in World War II, and very slowly upgrade and modify them. There's over 100, and more are planning to be added, which we think will keep the enthusiasts happy. I wouldn't know one of these planes from the other, but after a while I started to find my favorites, and I was fascinated by how they all handled differently. And it's such a spectacular looking game too.
I agree. In fact, I can't think of another flight game that even comes close to this visually. I mean, in terms of this scale.
There is a lot of detail and huge draw distances, plus the damage model on each plane is excellent, and it reminds you how fragile they are. I loved the clouds, and I'd find myself just flying through them and forgetting about the battle. They look so good.
Cockpit view is terrifying, as it should be, but especially in a storm. All the wonderful instruments and rickety old plane stuff is nice and detailed, and we can only assume accurate to the planes. Audio complements each view perfectly too. It's particularly thrilling in a dogfight with headphones on as the rat-a-tat-tat barrels past your ears.
Apparently this game is coming to PS4 as well, which is a really good thing because the biggest problem with it right now is the controller support, so they'll obviously have to iron that out. Right now, the only way to play this game effectively is with the mouse and keyboard, and from what I've read, some flight sticks. I know it's only in beta, so it's not completely fair to criticize this, but I must have spent half a day trying to get the controller settings right with the right amount of dead zone and sensitivity, but I still just had so much wobble, and at the end of the day, mouse wins on the battlefield.
And considering their website boasts multi-control support, which you need for a game like this to keep the population up and spending, you should be able to just plug in a 360 controller and go, but you can't really.
There is a realistic multiplayer mode which removes mouse view by force, but we could actually get a game there, and I'd say that's probably because it's easier to earn XP in arcade battles. One downside about arcade mode is that all the planes are easier to fly. So this means the countries which have planes that have their strengths in maneuverability are going to have too many weaknesses when they're on the arcade battlefield.
Did you guys know you can drift if you press Q and E? Sick drifts.
To be honest, we haven't unlocked enough planes from all of the countries to really accurately assess that, but the good news is the mouse aim controls are fantastic, and it's by far the most spectacular way to play this game. Flicking your mouse up and down will steer the plane quickly, and by moving your crosshair, the plane will automatically correct to line up.
When you die in the battlefield, that plane is gone until you finish the match, and it does cost to repair, so stakes are reasonably high. I really liked that when you run out of planes, you can leave the match before it's over without any penalty.
Yeah, I like that too, and I like how you don't have to have dogfights. You can just go and attack ground units and still be a valuable member to your team.
More experienced players will want to try out the realistic control settings so that they can play with a whole bunch of confusing flight instruments. There's actually quite a lot of sim in this game, isn't there? Even though the best way to play is still with a point-and-click mouse.
Yeah, and once you let go of the fact that the mouse makes it feel a little like it's on rails, you soon discover that there are still heaps of strategy in these dogfights. Depending on your plane, of course, it's mostly about managing momentum. These are slow, rickety, fragile planes. If you aim your plane straight down at full speed, don't expect a safe recovery by just pulling up. You're probably not going to get out of that dive alive. And that makes sense, and I like that about this game.
It really is about planning your attacks and having good patience, isn't it? You're just not going to catch someone by chasing them with your throttle on full. You need to change trajectory to fly where they're going to be, and even that can be unsuccessful if they change course suddenly.
I find altitude to be everything. It's all about staying as high as you can and looking for unsuspecting pilots below. Then you just need to pick the right moment to dive bomb, cut your throttle so you don't overshoot, use your combat flaps if you got them, and then wait for the perfect moment to unleash hell for maximum effect.
Yeah, at first I was firing as soon as a target came on screen, but that then indicates you're in range. You soon realise that that just makes your target start to veer off. Short burst attacks are essential, and that means being stealthy.
Yeah, and I love that planning stage, especially when you've got a wingman, or wingwoman, or wing person.
Okay, I'm on the guy. There's two of them after you. I'm on them.
No chance.
He's dead. I see him.
He's coming right for us! Oh, no! Ah! Incendiary rounds!
Yes!
Surely I can jump in.
Oh my! Oh dear! Oh dear! Oh! Are you gonna try and land through that palm? Oh, you're doing it!
Excuse me, that was awesome.
Fantastic, you haven't stopped yet though. Perhaps my trajectory of approach
Perfect. 10 out of 10 for that landing.
was not quite right.
They're also working on a ground support feature as well, but let's talk about what it's like with the Oculus Rift. I actually found this kind of incredible, especially as the plane was banking and I'm looking down at the ground below me. I just felt like I was right up there. Just looking down and seeing the houses.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, it replicates that feeling of flying really well, doesn't it? I guess my only issue is that you wouldn't really want to take this online. It wouldn't be your first choice to play competitively because you'd feel at a disadvantage. The resolution is still not great, and you know you're battling with that sensation of feeling sick anytime you want to pull off some kind of tricky maneuver.
Yeah, it really is just about the experience, isn't it? That flying sensation. And what an experience. I can't wait for the high resolution version of this.
Oh god, someone's behind me.
Oh no.
Oh god.
Look behind you.
Oh, I see them. Oh god, they're hitting me.
Oh no.
Oh god, I feel sick.
upside down?
I'm upside down. I'm gonna crash. I'm gonna crash. I'm gonna crash.
It's stressful just watching it from here.
I'm trying to do evasive maneuvers.
This is oh, your windscreen's getting shot up.
Oh god. Oh, I feel sick.
Look behind,
god.
you.
Oh god, no.
Oh, no, no,
I'm going down. That was really scary.
Yeah.
Oh, the crash was scary.
Oh.
I felt like a total loss of control just then. Now, as far as the pay model goes, it certainly doesn't feel pay to win to us, but there's definitely a grindiness to it. This is common with free-to-play games like this though, and apparently it opens up a bit more once you get at least one decent plane, but we haven't been able to grind up to that yet. Well, this is a fantastic fighter game with some intense moments and glorious atmosphere and surprisingly minimal lag as well. It's not really fair to score it yet, but I could give it a beta score of 7.5.
I wish you could modify the planes a bit quicker. But Hex, I had a great time with this. I lost days without even blinking, so I'm going to give it a beta score of 8 out of 10 rubber chickens with a possible 9 if they fix the controller.
Well, if this isn't a big enough year already with new consoles and new tech like this, 2013 is also the 30th anniversary of the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yes, and to celebrate, Goose blows some dust out of some cartridges and hits the power button.
The NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System. It was the highest selling video game console of the 1980s, and in many ways, it's gone on to shape the entire industry in its image. The influence of the NES and its games can't be overstated. It dominated the market for half a decade, making billions in profits, all while shaping the subtle minds of an entire generation. But behind its friendly graphics, there was a darker side. The NES was born in 1983 when Nintendo released the Family Computer, or the Famicom. Millions of Famicons were being sold in the land of the rising sun, but across the Pacific, the video game industry was in a black hole. A glut of terrible Atari 2600 cartridges had nuked America's first video game boom. Burned by the bust, shops simply refused to sell game consoles. Nintendo's management foresaw that whoever could crack the US market could dominate it, so they decided to establish a beachhead. With a sleek new shell, the Famicom became the NES. Determined to distance this product from the failures of the past, Nintendo didn't even call it a console. The NES was marketed as a control deck. The initial $50 million US marketing blitz emphasized not the machine, but its capabilities. A light gun that could shoot ducks,
and play games like Duck Hunt.
a toy robot that didn't do much, but it looked cool. It looked like the future.
When you master Rob, the video robot.
Nintendo's internal R&D teams competed fiercely to come up with the best new games and gimmicks, and design geniuses Gunpei Yokoi and Shigeru Miyamoto delivered. It was a perfect storm. Nintendo won over the shops and the gamers, and NES sales took off. In '87, the invasion of European territories began, and millions of young Australians caught NES fever. By 1989, there was a NES in 1 of 4 US homes. By 1990, it was 1 in 3. Hit games sold in the millions. The first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game sold 4 million copies in spite of its mediocre gameplay. Spin-offs multiplied. TV shows starred NES heroes like Super Mario and Link.
You're supposed to be guarding the Triforce.
Well, excuse me, Princess.
And a major motion picture, The Wizard, served as a feature-length advert for Super Mario Bros. 3 and the Power Glove.
I love the Power Glove. It's so bad.
For those on the gravy train, life was sweet. At the time, Data East boss Bob Lloyd said selling NES games was a license to steal. Companies such as Capcom, Acclaim and THQ made fortunes.
But that profitability came at a price. Nintendo would only permit licenses to sell carts made by Nintendo itself, cash in advance, with a minimum order of 10,000. Games licensed for NES had to be a console exclusive for 2 years after launch, and each company was limited to just 5 games a year. Nintendo lobbied the US government in an attempt to ban game rentals. Wary of the effect it would have on their bottom line, a lawyer from Nintendo referred to game rentals as commercial rape. They enforced recommended retail prices ruthlessly. A store that discounted a console by as little as 6 cents would find their shipments cut off. What's more, Nintendo engineered market shortages to keep demand at a fever pitch. US retailers placed orders for 110 million carts in '88. Nintendo only sold them 33 million. There were accusations of preferential treatment, and the only stores that had adequate stock of games and consoles for Christmas 1989 had been hoarding them all year. Scarcity only fueled the obsession. By 1990, American children found Mario more recognizable than Mickey Mouse. The NES money train seemed unstoppable, but there was another perfect storm brewing. Observing the way playing these games released endorphins, scientists theorized that this pastime could have adverse addictive effects. Oprah Winfrey dubbed gamers Nintendo zombies. But worst of all, the late 1980s saw a surge of anti-Japanese sentiment in the US. Americans were paranoid that superior Japanese business practices were leaving them in the dust. And here was a Japanese company that, by fair means or foul, had conquered a traditional American industry on its own turf. The rancor culminated in a congressional antitrust investigation into Nintendo, the results of which were announced on December 7th, 1989, the anniversary of the Pearl Harbor attack. Nintendo never admitted to any wrongdoing, but after a whole year of scrutiny from the media and the Federal Trade Commission, it lifted some of its more onerous licensing restrictions. The 2-year ban on ports was lifted, and the industry evolved from a de facto monopoly into the highly competitive multi-platform market that we now know today. The hardware may have faded away, but Nintendo's identity is still defined by the software of the NES era. The play mechanics of the Mario series are largely unchanged to this day, yet that peppy plumber is still the #1 platform hero. Then and now Zelda games evoke a spirit of wonder in the young and the young at heart. Donkey Kong, Samus, their names live on in the zeitgeist. The NES legacy endures because it represents a renaissance in gaming history. Depth, polish, and innovation were the hallmarks of NES software. For an entire generation, the sound of the NES is the sound of nostalgia.
Good game.
Thanks, Goose. Normally when I think about the zombie apocalypse, the last thing I think about are garden plants, but somehow developer PopCap have managed to mesh the two together in a charming tower defense game with Plants vs. Zombies. Now, the sequel is finally here, Plants vs. Zombies 2. It's about time.
The zombies are coming.
The sequel's name, It's About Time, has a couple of meanings. First off, it sets up the game's time-travelling premise, but it also pokes fun at just how long the developers have taken to make this game.
I can't believe it's been 4 years, Hex. What have these guys been doing? But yes, I like that this game doesn't take itself too seriously. It's exactly the right tone for a game where the hero, Crazy Dave, is heading back in time to find a taco. You see, he's already eaten the taco in the present, so he needs to rewind time so he can eat it again.
Very deep premise there. Just like the first game, the tower you're protecting is Crazy Dave's brain. Now, as far as brains go, this is a pretty bland one, but if you fail to fend off the zombies, they'll still eat it. Your only defense against the zombies are those lines of botanic weaponry.
Hex, my go-to strategy from the first game, is still hardwired in my brain.
The zombies are coming.
I like to devote a couple of lines up the back to sunflowers, because they create extra sunlight, the game's currency for building new plants. Then I'd have a couple of lines of pea shooters as my artillery, topped up with a line of torchwoods to set the ammo on fire. And lastly, a line of walnuts to keep the zombies munching whilst my artillery does its job. I could still use this strategy on occasion in the sequel, but usually there were twists that forced me to switch things up. Like the first era in ancient Egypt, it's littered with tombstones that block peas, so I had to switch to cabbage catapults and the new boomerang plants. What do you think of the new plants, Hex?
Well, I was kind of disappointed initially because there are actually less plants in this game than there were in the original, which is odd for a sequel. But, you know, after a while that less is more approach actually grew on me. You don't have to worry as much about equipping super specific plants like the balloon popping cacti. But plus, I really liked that short-range chompers have been ditched in favour of boxing bok choy. They make for a far more efficient frontline defence, so I found myself using them a lot, especially in the pirate ship levels where your space for plants is limited.
Yeah, those pirate levels were great fun. They normally only have 2 full-length rows that act as a boarding plank between your ship and the zombies. The new spring beans are awesome on these planks because they can toss zombies off into the water, but they need to recharge between attacks, and that's when I'd unleash the coconut cannons.
For me, the new star challenges are the big game changer. They dish out very specific challenges for you to complete, and you can travel around the map tackling them at your own pace. Like this one, where there's a lineup of precious flowers the zombies can't trample. Plus, the hardest bit is at the end when you need to take out 8 zombies in one combo. What? These levels are tough, but you know, I found the game really shined when you're only left with a few tools to get the job done with.
Yeah, those challenges are clever. I like the power-ups too. If I misjudged my plant strategy just a little and was about to be overwhelmed, I could trigger a power-up and flick the zombies off.
Well, I actually made the very hardline decision to never spend coins on power-ups. The game is designed so that there's always a way to beat the challenges without power-ups, so I was determined to figure out each one.
I found I was earning more coins in-game than I was spending, so that balance felt right to me. And I like to look at the power-ups as kind of like a rewind feature in a racing game. You can fix up a small mistake without having to redo everything. You can tell they've worked on the structure of the free-to-play model here, and I think they got it just right.
Absolutely. I mean, the original was a paid game, but I've enjoyed this sequel much more, and I haven't spent a cent on any microtransactions.
Yeah, I dropped a few dollars because I was having a good time, and that's a good sign of a free-to-play game when you want to give something back to the developer. I'm giving this 9 out of 10 rubber chickens.
It's 8.5 from me.
Good game.
So did you guess the game for this week?
I think I'm lost. Ow!
It was Lawnmower Man the game, released in 1993 and based on the Pierce Brosnan film of the same name. There were 2 versions available, a CD version, which was pretty much an interactive film, and a cartridge version, which was a side-scrolling shooter. And it's our Guess the Game this week, as it's all about 90s virtual reality, which was pretty bad.
Next week on the show, Halo goes mobile with Spartan Assault.
And the cyberpunk fantasy of Shadowrun returns.
Being a runner takes more than skill and street smarts. You want to live long enough to get paid, you'll need a team, the right talent for the job.
And just a reminder, here on ABC2 on the weekend, we have Good Game Pocket Edition, which is a weekly wrap-up of everything Good Game and Spawn Point.
Yes, and we also answer your gaming-related questions, so if you have any queries you'd like us to answer, then send them in here.
Yes, until then, Bajo out.
Hex out.
You can ask us anything. You can ask us
if you're stuck on a level or a part of a game,
or if you're playing a beta of something cool and you want us to check it out, we can check it out. Or if you want to see pictures of our cats.
We've got lots of pictures of cats we can show you.
If you want to know how many times I brush my cat in a day, spoiler alert.
It's a lot.
It's 6.